Thanks for tuning in to the Real Women Chronicles podcast. I am your international certified life coach, Tiadra Taylor. The sole purpose of this podcast is to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. Yes, it's time to break chains and to get unstuck. Thanks again for joining in. Let's begin. Hello. Thank you guys for joining me for yet again another episode of the Real Women Chronicles podcast. This is actually my first time, guys, doing an actual visual podcast. Now, let me say this. I will not do these each and every week. It just is a lot. I'm still learning how to get this whole ring light and microphones and all of this stuff together. But for right now, we're just going to do it straight from my Canon camera. If you are tuning in via audio, just know that this same podcast that I am recording right now is available on my YouTube channel, which is fairly new. I only have probably at this point in time, 4 or 5 videos that I've posted over the years, but I'm definitely going to get more active. I've heard you guys tell me that you want to see more of my face. I know you want to put, a face behind the Coach T voice. So here I am. I am on YouTube now. Again, that is Real Women Chronicles. If you would like to see more of these videos, visually, please feel free to let me know. I love to hear from you guys, and I love to really, really answer your request. Okay. That being said, I'm actually doing 2 things at one time. So I'm doing a visual camera, and I'm also recording audio on the back end. Like I said, I'm new to all of this. So if there's any disruptions or anything, just forgive me in advance, y'all. So that being said, today I wanted to talk about a really important topic that came to me. And I'm telling you, God has been sending me so many topics this week. I think this is really the season for each and every one of us to really break through, y'all. I really, truly believe that. And this particular topic that I'm going to speak off of today is entitled, "Is it love or your fear of being alone?" Guys, this topic actually hits me on a personal level, because I have been in relationships where the fear of being alone truly kept me in toxic situations. And sometimes we do have to ask ourselves the question, is it really love? Or am I afraid of being alone? Am I afraid of facing myself? Am I afraid of comforting myself? Does it scare me to not have someone there in my life? So, and living in that fear, I settle for less than what I deserve. Listen, guys, I'm a huge advocate of love. I love love. I think it's a beautiful thing. So never think that Coach T is against love. But I am against unhealthy love. Hence the reason why I came up with the Breakup to Breakthrough journal, because I truly, truly am against it, because I know what it does to us women. I know how it breaks us down. I know how it debilitates us and causes us to not be able to function straight. When we're being loved unhealthy, that is the worst curse on a woman's life. So I really believe that God has put me on assignment to really coach on these topics and just understand this, okay? You can't teach further than you learn. So I too felt heartache. I too felt what it's like to be afraid of being alone. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I kind of want to give you all 3 signs to look for when you're trying to determine whether or not you're truly in love or whether or not you're just afraid to be alone. Okay? I'm going to go in order. Number 1, I truly believe that we have to evaluate whether we're loving this person because we utterly love them and they bring out this emotion of love, or whether we're loving them because we're bonded to them. And what I mean by that is there's something called trauma bond. And a trauma bond is formed whenever we have had some type of similar type of trauma in our past. Okay, whether we had unresolved issues with our dad or our mom. And somehow or another, we grow up as adults and we recreate this trauma in our relationships. But see, here's the problem. The trauma is our norm. That's all we know. So even if we get into a healthy relationship, we yearn for that trauma. Hence the reason why many women, many of us all, run back to the same toxic relationships. It's not always because you love that person. Sometimes it's because you've grown accustomed to that trauma bond. And now you're running off of this addiction. And this addiction to this trauma bond makes you addicted to that person. And sometimes we actually mistake that trauma bond for love. Listen, I've done it for years. It feels like love. But the difference between love and that trauma bond is that trauma bond ignites fears. It ignites feelings that you haven't yet resolved. And guess what, guys? Sometimes I think God puts us in these types of relationships and in these types of bonds, not to torture us, but to force us to eventually confront that old pain, confront those old disappointments that we have yet to actually, confront. And one thing I know for sure is it can't be conquered until you first confront it. And if you've been praying for that strength, maybe you're in that toxic relationship because it's time for you to confront those old traumas and those fears that have been ignited since childhood for many of us. So, number one, again, is determining whether you're loving that person wholeheartedly, and that love does not include fear. That love does not include manipulation. That love does not include constant sadness. Because if it is, you could have this trauma bond with this person that has the intensity of love, but it's actually a toxic form of bonding to a person. So you can easily mistake this for love. Easily. So determine how it feels. Determine why you're bonded. Determine why you run back into a dark hole where you know that the ending, you know it's not going to turn out right, but somehow you're addicted. Guys, I'm going to do another video on trauma bonding because I can go deep only because I understand it wholeheartedly. Like I said, years of being bonded because of this trauma that I've experienced as a kid. That's another topic for another day. But listen, I would definitely have to say number 2, and let me go to my notepad here because guess what? I typically do this strictly audio, but today, like I said, I am actually doing this as well visually. So I got to get used to this process. So normally you don't see me flip back and forth on my notes and look away, but today that is what we're going to do. So number 2, do you place your value, in this relationship? Listen, whenever we're trying to determine whether we're connected to a person because we love them, or whether we're connected to them simply because we're afraid of being alone, we have to confront this very fact. Okay? Do you see yourself valuable without being in a relationship? Many of us women, we were taught that our value lies in who loves us. Our value lies in who's willing to claim us and who's willing to say, this is my girlfriend, or this is my woman, or this is my wife. And we aspire for this, feeling from a very young, tender age. It's like society has really brainstormed us into believing that in order for us to really have some type of value, we have to be wanted by somebody else. And see, the problem with this is whenever our value is attached to a relationship, we begin to attach to people who don't truly deserve us. And the reason why we're attaching to those people who don't truly deserve us is because we're so afraid to lose this false perception of value. I'd rather deal with this man who's toxic and disrespectful to me than be alone and have to explain to everybody that I'm single, or have to explain to everybody why my marriage didn't work out. So we stay entangled in these relationships that really break us down to the core because we have yet to see value within ourselves. So again, number 2, if you are trying to determine whether or not you're in love or you're just running from the fear of being alone, this is something you want to ask yourself. Do I feel worthy? Do I feel worthy in or outside of this relationship? And that's a tough question to answer, okay? Number 3, I must say that number 3 is last, but definitely not least. Listen, when we're determining whether we're in love or just afraid of being alone, the biggest telltale sign to really coming to grips with this relationship is asking yourself, what is it that you're willing to accept? Whenever we're afraid of being alone, guys, when I tell y'all, we accept very little. And rightfully so. Because if you're afraid of being alone, you're not always going to be conscious of ensuring that you get the best mate. Because your purpose is not to be alone. So that means that no matter what happens in that relationship, no matter the cheating, no matter the disrespect, no matter the nights that you spend crying, you focus on the fact that I'm going to put up with all this because I don't want to be alone. I'm going to tell myself that I'm going to allow this person to cross my boundaries, to disrespect me because I am afraid of being alone. Determine what you're willing to put up with in this relationship. Because I assure you, you can love a person and still not allow them to hurt you. You can love a person and still not allow them to disrespect you. Because the truth is, you can't truly love anyone wholeheartedly until you have first loved yourself. And with that loving yourself, you're able to love someone else the way that they should be loved. But the lack of love for yourself equals your lack of demanding respect and honor from the person that you love. And your inability to really effectively love anybody else because you have yet to found that within. What is it that you're willing to put up with to maintain this relationship? What is it? Figure that out. What is it that you're willing to sacrifice? Are you sacrificing your dignity, your love for oneself? Are you sacrificing your peace of mind? Are you sacrificing your health? Your spirituality? What are you sacrificing? Because if you're sacrificing wholeheartedly who you are, this isn't love. This is trauma bonding. This is fears. No one wants to live unhappy. No one. And I'm not saying that relationships don't involve sacrifices. Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. But just determine what sacrifices you're willing to sacrifice for that relationship and which ones you won't sacrifice for, and stick to that. And in holding for that, you'll really determine whether or not you're in it for love or in it because you're afraid. Because whenever we're afraid, we'll start to compromise. We'll start to put up with stuff. We'll start to overlook those red flags. We'll start to say, you know what?